Welcome to our deep dive, and this time we're heading down under to New Zealand. We're going to Marlborough.
Marlborough, yeah.
So get ready for like some amazing Sauvignon Blanc, but I think there's a lot more to it than just that, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Marlborough's got, it's become famous for Sauvignon Blanc, but there were so many other things going on
Yeah, yeah.
in that region.
Well, we've got a whole stack of like articles and guides and even some tasting notes. So we're going to really try and get to the bottom of like what makes Marlborough so special.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, so one thing that really jumped out at me, I don't know if you saw this, but like the influence of Maori culture in the region.
Yes.
Like how often do you see that in the wine world?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it does kind of set it apart,
Yeah, yeah.
and that connection to the land. It's fascinating.
But I guess before we get there, we should probably talk about like the basics, like terroir.
Yeah.
Like what makes Marlborough?
Yeah, absolutely. So Marlborough is located on the northeastern tip of the South Island of New Zealand, and it's got this really interesting maritime climate. You know, it's got long, dry summers, cool winters,
Oh, okay.
which is really conducive to sort of like slow ripening.
Right.
So you get these really bright, vibrant acidity in the grapes.
Okay, cool. So, and I'm seeing all these articles are talking about Wairau Valley,
Yes.
Water Valley, and Southern Valley. So is that like, do those all kind of impact the wines differently?
Yes. So each of those valleys has a sort of slightly different microclimate.
Oh, okay.
So they're all kind of sheltered. They have these mountain ranges around.
Mm-hmm.
So it changes the amount of sunshine they get, temperature, wind exposure, all that.
Right.
And so even within a single grape variety, like Sauvignon Blanc, for example, you can get some really interesting differences depending on which valley it's grown in.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like different neighborhoods within Marlborough?
Exactly.
Okay. And then what about the soil? Because, I was reading about it and they're describing it as alluvial. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, so alluvial soil, basically, it's formed from all the sediment that's deposited over time by rivers and glaciers.
Uh-huh.
So you get these layers,
Okay.
that make up this really interesting, complex structure.
Okay.
And in Marlborough, specifically, you find a mix of gravel, clay, and something called loess.
Loess.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's this really fine windblown sediment.
Okay.
But basically, the gravel acts like a drainage system.
Okay.
So, when you get rain, it makes sure the water flows through and doesn't pool around the vines.
Okay.
The clay acts like a sponge.
Uh-huh.
So it retains moisture during dry periods. And the loess is, the fine sediment.
Yeah.
It just adds texture and complexity to the soil, which you can really taste in the wines.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's all right there in the glass.
It is. It is.
All right, well, let's talk about probably the reason why most people know about Marlborough, and that is Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
So what is it about Marlborough that makes their Sauvignon Blanc so, I don't know, distinctive?
Yeah, I mean, Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough, it's known for these incredibly intense aromas.
Okay.
You get passion fruit, gooseberry, citrus,
Okay.
and then this really sort of characteristic grassy note.
Okay, yeah. I've heard people, sometimes they even say like cat pee.
Yeah, you do hear that sometimes, right?
Yeah. Is that like a real thing, or is that just like wine snoggery?
Well, there is this chemical compound called pyrazines
Okay.
that can give you some vegetal or slightly pungent aromas.
Oh, okay.
But, in Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, it's usually really well integrated with the tropical fruit and citrus.
Right.
So, it adds complexity rather than being overpowering.
Okay, so it's like a little like spice
Exactly.
to add a little intrigue. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say, I'm not the biggest Sauvignon Blanc fan.
Okay.
Does Marlborough have anything else that I could try?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, good. Good.
I mean, it's famous for Sauvignon Blanc,
Yeah.
but it's not a one-trick pony. They make some fantastic Pinot Noir there.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because, I think of Pinot, I think of Burgundy, I don't think of New Zealand.
Well, Burgundy's the classic for a reason, but, in Marlborough, you have these cool nights and all this diversity in the soils.
Yeah.
And it creates this really specific style of Pinot Noir.
Okay.
And, they've even imported these renowned Dijon clones.
Really?
Yeah, the ones that are famous for those really elegant wines with the complex aromas.
Yeah.
They actually adapted really well to the Marlborough climate.
Wow. So it's like, I love that about exploring different wine regions. It's like, you never know what you're going to find.
You don't.
Okay, so we got Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Give me some more.
Well, Chardonnay.
Okay.
Chardonnay does really well there,
Oh,
too.
really? Okay.
Yeah, so, you get a range of styles, everything from crisp and mineral-driven to rich and oaky.
Wow. Okay.
Pinot Gris also thrives in the cool climate.
Okay.
You get balanced, complex wines. Sometimes they have these spicy notes from oak aging, which is really interesting.
Okay. I'm adding this all to my list. I need to try all of this. Anything else?
Yeah, if you like wines with a touch of sweetness, they have these fantastic Rieslings,
Okay.
and the cool climate helps them retain this vibrancy,
Yeah.
this bright acidity,
Okay.
which balances those beautiful floral and citrus aromas.
Wow.
So, yeah, and they're also experimenting with some less common varieties,
Okay.
things like Gewürztraminer, Pinot Meunier, Syrah, even Merlot.
Wow. Okay.
So they're really pushing the boundaries a little bit.
So it's a region of like embracing tradition, but also experimentation.
Yeah.
That's really cool. What about the winemaking itself? So, what are some of the like techniques and practices?
Well, Marlborough winemakers, I mean, they're known for having this real respect for the fruit.
Okay.
So they try to, they sort of blend these traditional and modern approaches.
Okay.
But a lot of them use stainless steel fermentation, for example,
Yeah.
to really preserve those fresh, vibrant aromas.
Right.
And they're very careful about, using selected yeasts,
Yeah.
aiming for really, clean expression of the grape.
Okay.
So it's quite purist in a lot of ways.
I see. Yeah. So, but I'm also reading that they're using some high-tech methods too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Innovation plays a big role in Marlborough.
Okay.
So some wineries use cryo-extraction.
Cryo-extraction.
Yeah, it sounds lovely fancy.
What is that?
So basically, they freeze the grapes to fair pressing them.
Oh.
So, you're kind of instantly capturing all those fresh aromas and locking them in.
Interesting. Okay.
And then, you also have things like micro-oxygenation,
Okay.
which lets winemakers really carefully control how much oxygen the wine's exposed to
Right.
during aging,
Mm-hmm.
which, can lead to this much more nuanced and refined final product.
Wow. So they're kind of like walking this tightrope between tradition and like the latest and greatest.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about, a big thing to me, and I think for a lot of wine drinkers these days, is sustainability.
Yeah.
So how does Marlborough kind of measure up?
Sustainability is a top priority in Marlborough.
Okay.
They're incredibly conscious of their environmental and social responsibility.
Okay. Good.
Protecting that pristine environment. That's not just about the wines. It's about the entire region.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like from all the articles, it seems like they're not just, talking about it.
No.
They're actually doing things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
They're taking steps.
Absolutely. So a lot of the vineyards are adopting these organic and biodynamic practices,
Okay.
which, focus on natural farming methods and reducing chemicals.
Right.
They're also really, investing in efficient water management,
Mm.
which is really important, because it can be quite dry in Marlborough.
Yeah.
And then they're also, really actively working on reducing their carbon footprint.
Wow, that's really cool to hear. It makes me feel better about drinking the wines, knowing that they're really taking that seriously.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, the wines and we've talked about the winemaking,
Yeah.
but what about just like visiting Marlborough?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really a beautiful place.
What's it like?
Imagine, lush green valleys surrounded by mountains.
Yeah.
You've got the sparkling waters of the Marlborough Sounds.
Wow. Okay, I need to go.
Yeah,
Sounds amazing.
it is. It is,
So, but I mean, you can't go and not visit some wineries, right?
of course.
So give me some names. Like, if I was going to go, where would I go?
Well, you've got Cloudy Bay,
Okay.
which is probably the most famous one.
Yeah.
But you also have Brancott Estate,
Okay.
Silla Maria,
Mm.
St. Clair.
Okay.
There are just so many.
Okay.
And, you can go cycling through the vineyards.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay.
Explore the sounds and, maybe even get a chance to engage with that Maori culture we talked about.
Oh, yeah. That actually brings me back to that because I do want to kind of circle back to that
Yeah.
because it's just not something you hear about a lot in the wine world, but it sounds like it's a really important part of Marlborough.
It is. It is.
So what about, I love to eat.
Of course.
What about the food scene there? Like what pairs well with all these amazing wines?
The food in Marlborough is incredible. It's all about fresh seasonal produce.
Okay.
The seafood is phenomenal.
Oh, okay.
Especially the oysters and mussels.
Oh, perfect pairing
Oh, yeah.
with a Sauvignon Blanc.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then you also have amazing lamb, beef, local cheeses, tons of fresh fruit.
So it sounds like my kind of place.
Yeah. And then you also get those Maori influences in the cuisine as well.
Oh, okay, interesting. So, we're painting this really idyllic picture
Yeah,
of Marlborough, but there's got to be some challenges, right?
yeah.
Like what are some of the things that these winemakers are kind of dealing with these days?
Well, I mean, climate change is a huge concern
Yeah.
globally,
Yeah.
and Marlborough's definitely, not immune to that.
Okay.
They're already seeing, some shifting weather patterns, and there's potential for, more frequent extreme events, which is really concerning.
Yeah, I can only imagine how stressful that is for the winemakers. So what are they doing?
Well, the good news is they're not just sitting around waiting for something to happen.
Right.
They're actively adapting.
Okay.
So they're exploring, new vineyard
Oh,
locations,
okay.
looking for places that might be, cooler, better suited for a warmer climate.
Okay.
They're experimenting with heat-resistant grape varieties,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find ones that will, thrive even as temperatures rise.
Okay.
And they're also investing in all these resilience practices,
Okay.
things like, improving soil health,
Yeah.
water conservation to make their vineyards, more robust.
More able to kind of handle whatever's coming.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. What about, climate change isn't the only challenge, right?
No, of course not. There's also increasing competition
Yeah.
in the global wine market.
Okay.
So Marlborough needs to, make sure it stands out,
Stays relevant.
stays relevant.
Yeah. So how are they doing that?
Well, first and foremost, they're maintaining the quality of their wines.
Okay.
That's paramount.
Yeah.
But, they're also really focusing on showcasing their regional identity.
Okay.
What makes Marlborough wines unique.
Right.
They're also really actively promoting their wines internationally.
Okay.
They're showcasing them at events.
Hmm.
They're working with sommeliers, retailers, really trying to get the word out.
So it's kind of quality, identity, and visibility.
Exactly.
Okay. So it sounds like they're on top of things. What else are they doing to kind of stay ahead of the game?
Well, there's a lot of research and development happening.
Oh.
Constantly exploring new grape varieties,
Mm-hmm.
innovative viticulture techniques,
Yeah.
advanced winemaking technologies, even experimenting with things like drone technology.
Really?
Yeah, for vineyard management and, precision viticulture.
So they're really embracing like a growth mindset,
Absolutely. Yeah.
even with all the challenges.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to pause here because I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah,
There's a lot more to talk about.
there is.
So let's pick this up in part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're back, and I feel like, we've really started to uncover some of the magic of Marlborough.
We have.
The terroir and the winemaking and the sustainability. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool is how, that sustainability aspect really ties into this bigger picture.
Yeah,
It's not just about protecting the environment for the wine.
right.
It's about the whole region, the
Right.
long-term health and well-being of everything.
Yeah, and it makes me feel better about drinking the wines,
Yeah,
knowing that they're really, conscious of the planet.
definitely. And I think that's becoming more and more important to consumers as well.
Yeah,
It's not just about the taste anymore.
right,
It's about the story behind it,
right.
the values.
The values of the people making it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
their impact.
So, okay, so we've got, they're making great wines, they're, dealing with the challenges, they're sustainable, but let's get back to the wines.
Okay.
We talked about Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, but what should I actually be looking for, like when I open a bottle of Marlborough wine?
Well, this is where, those tasting notes that we mentioned come in handy
Oh, yeah, okay.
because they can really give you a glimpse of what to expect.
Right, because I'm seeing, like explosive tropical fruit aromas and vibrant acidity and elegant structure. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I want to drink it now.
And that's the thing. Yeah, even within one grape variety, you're going to find all these variation
Mm-hmm.
depending on the producer, the sub-region, the vintage. And that's what keeps it so interesting.
It's not about like memorizing tasting notes.
No,
It's
no.
about like figuring out what you like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What works for your palate?
And it sounds like Marlborough really gives you that.
Oh, yeah.
Like a whole spectrum.
Definitely. From those, really zesty, almost electric Sauvignon Blancs to the, more nuanced, earthy Pinot Noirs.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
there's really something for everybody.
I'm sold. Okay, I need to get on this Marlborough train. But before we totally wrap up, I want to go back to the Maori influence.
Yeah.
Because, we mentioned it a couple times
Yeah.
and it just seems like such a unique aspect of Marlborough.
It is.
So can you like talk about it a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most fascinating parts of Marlborough, but it often gets overlooked.
Yeah.
And, the Maori, they have a really long history in the region.
Right.
It goes back centuries.
Yeah.
And their culture and their traditions are just really deeply intertwined with the land.
So how does that kind of like play out in the wines today?
Well, it's not so much about, specific winemaking techniques or grape varieties.
Okay.
It's more about this um, deep sense of place,
Okay.
a respect for the land and its history.
I can see that. And I feel like, it's reflected in those sustainable practices that we talk about.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's this growing awareness
Yeah.
of the importance of honoring that indigenous heritage.
Yeah.
And it's really woven into everything, from the
Yeah.
way they manage the vineyards to the way they approach wine tourism.
It's like recognizing that the land has a story to tell, and the wines are part of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm glad we talked about this because,
Yeah.
it's something that I'll be thinking about when I try these wines.
Yeah, I encourage you to, read up on it a little bit.
Okay.
Learn about, the Maori culture and history.
Okay.
It's fascinating.
Well, I feel like my appreciation for Marlborough has grown like tenfold
Yeah.
just from this conversation.
Good.
It's clearly a lot more than just a place that makes a great wine.
It is.
It's, rich history, vibrant culture, deep connection to the land.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, but it also sounds like it's a region that's like constantly evolving and changing
Oh, yeah.
and innovating.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious about some of these like specific challenges and innovations.
Yeah.
Should we maybe take a little break and come back and talk about that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our Marlborough adventure.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has, yeah.
Yeah.
But, we've talked about the land and the grapes and the techniques, but it always comes back to the people.
Absolutely.
It does, yeah. That's what makes it so special.
Marlborough's success isn't just a fluke, like some happy accident of geography.
Right.
It really comes down to the people, the generations of winemakers who have, put their heart and soul into this land.
Yeah.
It's their vision, their sweat and toil that have made Marlborough what it is today.
And you can taste it in the wines.
Yeah.
Like it's more than just a drink.
It is, yeah.
It's an experience.
It's like they've bottled the essence of Marlborough,
Yeah.
Each sip tells a story.
Yeah, a story of like innovation and tradition and just this real dedication to quality.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking back to some of those producers we talked about, like Cloudy Bay and Dog Point and Felton Road.
Yeah.
Like you can see how they're not just making wine, they're building something.
They are. Yeah. A legacy.
Yeah.
Rooted in respect for the land, this pursuit of excellence, and this constant desire to kind of push the boundaries a little bit.
And it's that innovative spirit that's helping them deal with some of these challenges, right?
Yeah.
Like climate change and competition.
Right.
So speaking of climate change, like what are they actually doing?
Well, they're definitely not sticking their heads in the sand.
Right.
They're acknowledging that the climate is changing.
Yeah.
And they're taking steps.
Okay.
So they're, exploring new vineyard sites,
Okay.
looking for cooler spots
Okay.
that might be better suited to a warmer climate.
Okay.
They're experimenting with heat-resistant grape varieties,
Yeah.
trying to find the ones that are going to thrive.
Okay, so like trial and error.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's viticulture, right?
Right.
There's always going to be a little bit of that.
So any specific grapes that they're kind of like excited about?
Well, there's a lot of buzz about Albarino.
Albarino, okay.
It's a Spanish white grape,
Okay.
and it's known for its acidity and those sort of citrusy flavors.
Okay.
And it seems to be adapting pretty well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, to the Marlborough climate.
So it's not just about like saving what they have.
No.
It's about looking for new things.
It's about looking for new possibilities, yeah.
Wow.
New flavors that could become like the next big thing in Marlborough.
That's cool.
Yeah, and beyond exploring those new grapes, they're also really focusing on those sustainable practices that we talked about.
Right.
To help mitigate the effects of climate change, things like water conservation, soil health management, and even using renewable energy sources at their wineries.
Wow.
So, it's a really holistic approach.
Yeah, it is.
From the vineyard to the, to the winery itself.
So what about, competition? Because you mentioned that the wine market is getting really crowded.
Yeah, it is.
So how are they making themselves stand out?
Well, I think they're really doubling down on what makes Marlborough special.
Okay.
They're focusing on telling their story,
Yeah.
highlighting their regional identity,
Yeah.
emphasizing that commitment to sustainability.
Yeah.
People want to know where their food and drink comes from.
Right.
And Marlborough winemakers are tapping into that.
It's like they're saying, this is who we are.
Yeah.
This is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what makes our wine special.
And they're not just talking the talk.
Right.
They're walking the walk.
Yeah.
The quality speaks for itself
Okay.
at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by, their their kind of forward-thinking approach,
Yeah,
It doesn't seem like they're resting on their laurels at all.
they're not.
They're constantly innovating,
They
adapting,
are. Yeah,
pushing themselves.
yeah. It's really exciting to see.
It is.
And that's what makes me so optimistic about the future of Marlborough Wines.
Yeah.
They've proven time and again that they're willing to embrace change
Yeah.
and push the boundaries.
Well, I think it's safe to say we're both, like, officially in love with Marlborough.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, this deep dive has been so much fun.
it has.
And I feel like I've learned so much.
I have too. Yeah,
And, for anyone listening, if you haven't experienced Marlborough wines, I really think you need to.
you do.
Whether it's a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc or a Pinot Noir or even better, a trip to the region itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely worth exploring.
It is.
So until our next deep dive, happy exploring.